Hey, what's up, everyone? Coach here. We have a new podcast, the Peak Archery Podcast. It is all about planning to peak. It is definitely related to Larry Wise's book, Planning to Peak in Archery. But the podcast is, you may see just me interviewing guests. You may see Larry and I both. You may see um, guest hosts. You may see professional archers, all kinds of people on the podcast. So it's a new endeavor. It's strictly about improving competitive archery, and for competitors, for coaches, for parents, for everyone. So, but also highlighting Larry's book and sections of Larry's book and how to implement that plan. So, I hope you enjoy it. Enjoy episode number one. It's kind of like I said, a new endeavor on an old format, and I hope you enjoy this episode. And I'm gonna go live.
How's my hair?
How's mine?
Yours is looking great too.
All right, I think we are good. So it's been a while, everyone. Since you've seen me and Larry together on a podcast outside of the Bearbow Project recently. So welcome to what the new Peak Archery podcast. This is a little bit of a collaborative effort to from myself and Larry. And the goal here is we're going to highlight Larry's book, Planning to Peak in Archery. Obviously, you guys figure it out there. Figure it out there.
Way to go, Frank. Way to go, Frank.
Look, it all works out. You see, figure that stuff out. But this podcast, everybody knows me from the Bearbow Project. That podcast has blown up quite a bit in the last year or two. But the Bearbow Project is geared 90% toward Bearbow. But a lot of the stuff that we do on there is transferable, or in its own right is capable of being discussed in other formats, really targeting, key terms here, people, targeting compound, Olympic recurve, and Bearbow all in one podcast, specifically really getting after compound, because let's face it, Larry, there's no podcasts out there that are talking about this stuff. No. So this podcast is going to be geared specifically toward competitive archers, competitive for archery coaches, parents, and really talking about and talking with people, professional archers, professional coaches that have an impact on how you plan to peak for competitive archery.
Right. We want to explore what other people who have been successful, who are now successful, we want to explore what they feel is important, what got them to their peak, and maybe ask each one of them to tell us two or three issues, items, practice skills, something, two or three items that help them get to their peak. Of course, it takes a lot more than that, but in a 30-minute podcast, we want to hone in on two or three important things. Yep. And I think, everybody would be happy to listen to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And maybe pick out one of them that really resonates with them that they can do.
Yep. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's going to be shorter, not long story related podcasts. They're going to be shorter, to the point, and it's going to be, we're going to bring on some professionals. We're going to reach out to, between my contacts, Larry's contacts, and if you have requests, right, if there's people that you would like to see on the podcast or interviewed and discussed with this stuff, check it out. Mm-hmm. Let us know. Shoot us a DM. Like, hey, I'd love to hear what so-and-so has to say. Mm-hmm. and we'll try to get them on the podcast and talk to them about it. But with that being said, Larry, you have a new book.
Oh, yeah.
You and I talked about it a little bit. Oh, wait, before we do that, also, Larry and I are really opening up the archery coaching as well. So if you guys that are listening to this are interested in coaching online private lessons, maybe one with both of us, stuff like that, reach out to me. And, we'll make sure that you are, let us know what you're looking for, and we'll see if we can't help you. LarryWise.com. You can find all of his information, including the information about his book. GrassHollowArchery.com for me, whereas my coaching information is there, as well as the Bearbow Project. And that includes this book that we're about ready to talk about. So the book, if you are looking to purchase the book, the edited version of this on YouTube will be on Larry's new YouTube page, as well as the YouTube page for the podcast, and the links to buy the book will be available in the information for the podcast. So, Larry, let's talk about the book real quick.
Okay, right here.
Planning to Peak in Archery.
That's it. Okay.
Good.
And as I said before, when we did the podcast for Bearbow Project things, I spent over 3 years writing that, and the ups and downs of dealing with publishers, etc.
Yeah.
It just you really got to stick at it. You really do. And it got several different rewrites and different directions for the book, but I'm really happy how it turned out.
Good.
And I speak directly to coaches and athletes as well. What are the components of the mental game? What do you have to do? And it's no mystery. Mental game is not a mystery. There are easy things that you can do yourself. If you have a coach, great, that helps. And if you are a coach, I outline the different things and ways to do them, the different aspects of the mental game. There are many, not just what goes through your mind when you're standing there shooting an arrow. It starts way before that. So in the book, I made it into 4 sections. The first section is to help you establish your proper perspective of archery. And always the first principle of archery is a 2-step sport. Step 1, learn to hit the mark. And step 2, repeat step 1.
So simple.
It is so simple, but that's what we desire to do when we select a target. If you're not selecting a target, you're just shooting arrows up in the air, great. You don't have to worry about repeating anything.
Right.
Right. If you're going to hit a target, you need to repeat. So everything after the first few pages of my book is geared to helping you repeat. And so the second section is about how to prepare and what topics you need to prepare in, from building a practice session, building a training plan for 6 months ahead of you, all that, a pre-shot routine, your shot routine, that's really section 4 of the book, a post-tournament evaluation, all of that, setting goals, right? Writing self-talk statements, positive self-talk statements.
Which is what we're talking about today.
You're planning to not use the negative self-talk statements that we all do, but catching yourself immediately and then filling in with a positive. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. Third section is about attitude, how to structure your attitude. And I think there's 5 chapters in that section. And the 4th section is about your focus ability, your conscious focus ability, and your visual focus ability. Mm-hmm. That ties right directly into your conscious focus. Yeah. And of course, that gets to a project I'm involved in, collecting data for what is known as the trait of quiet eye. the stillness of your visual focus. I like to call it on target gaze. It's what your eyes are doing the last second or two before and during the release of the arrow. That is critical. And so I'm working with a sports psychologist from Florida, University of Florida, and we collected some data. We're going to be talking more about that. We'll have him on. Yeah. And when we get some data put together, that would be a great talk. So
conversation.
Right. So 4 sections to the book with specific help for it. One simple thing that we can talk about now is writing positive self-talk statements. Anybody can do it. Everybody should do it. And have you done it? It's just a piece of paper and a pencil, right? Or your phone and typing in a few into a little file. Mm-hmm. That's all it takes. And if you need help, of course, I give you examples in my book, but if you need help about positive self-talk statements, just search positive self-talk statements and you'll come up with hundreds of little articles to help you do that. Yeah. But you ought to have written on a little 3x5 card in your quiver.
100% doing that.
4 good ones.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. And when things get a little confusing out there on the range, like whenever you're shooting bear bow at a field range and you stick one in the bale above the target face, Frank, then
80 yards.
I saw the picture. 80
yards. I did it not once, but I did it twice at 80 yards. The exact same spot.
Yeah.
Just a little high. 80 yards bare bow at a centimeter face is it's a difficult task.
That's one of the great memories from my youth, shooting bare bow. Yeah. That's all there was back in the late 50s, 1960s.
Yeah.
Bare bow. Yep. A couple
I have
of men,
not to derail the conversation, but I have such a profound appreciation for field archery after NFAA this past weekend. I, without a doubt, will be building a field course, and the shooters that I work with weekly will be shooting it more often than not anymore.
Yeah,
we may get away from a lot of the static target distance practicing and do more and more and more field, maybe even indoor play around with a little bit.
It's a great challenge, the ultimate challenge in archery. And that's why I'm so proud to have won a world field championship years ago.
Yeah,
but that's the ultimate challenge.
Yeah, really.
And of course that was 5 days of shooting.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't shoot the whole, I shot 4 days, one of which was practice, or did I shoot 4? No, wait, so I did shoot 5. I shot Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I shot Tuesday practice, 14 targets, but I think the thing that I found out the most, and we are a little sidetracked, but that's okay. There's so much more than just shooting and preparation, like shooting and archery preparation that goes into it. Cause I struggled with dehydration Wednesday, Thursday.
Yes. It's very, very demanding.
Yeah.
And shooting, for the World Field Championship in Scotland.
Yeah.
You're out there 8 hours a day.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet.
And you're doing that 5 days in a row. Yeah. And what people didn't see was me doing my road work in the months ahead of that.
Yeah.
Out jogging almost every morning.
Yeah, I bet.
Being in shape. Yeah, it's just real. But way back, it might have been like 1959 or 1960. I was shooting up at Shawnee Archery. So I was like 13, 14, shooting barebow. That's all there was.
Right.
And I remember shooting at the 80-yard target and hitting the dot in the center. Of course, back then, the dot and the whole white was 5.
Yeah.
And the black ring was
3.
3.
Yeah.
Okay. But I hit the dot, and it was called the pimple. That's how we referred to it. You shot phrase. One in the pimple at 80 yards. Well, I was like, king. But I was hooked, Loved to shoot field archery. I wish I could shoot enough arrows to shoot that now. But I suppose if I shot 4 targets a day, in 7 days, I could get a field round in. That's what I could do. But whether you can shoot a lot or not, you have the ability to write down 3 or 4 really good positive self-talk statements and have that on a card in your quiver. And as I like to tell people, it's great to have the list. It's better if you use it. So you've got to be pulling that card out and reading it to yourself. And that helps you with your perspective, you see.
Yeah. You have to have that positive outlook no matter what happens on every arrow. And whether that and what that sort of does is it keeps the emotions down. And so you're not getting overly excited about a great end. You're not getting overly anxious and upset about a not so great end. You're staying consistent. Right. So what does that play into? That plays into your heart rate staying down. It plays into your nerves staying down. Right. And and it makes you process driven because you're just, part of your process is the positive self-talk and those positive self-affirmations.
Right. And a big thing that it helps you with, it helps you avoid the judgmental thoughts that you have of how good or bad you are as a person, as a human. Yeah. Because your archery score does not change who you are as a person. No. It doesn't change your character unless you react badly to something that happened with your arrows or score or whatever. Of course, then now we're into, is this the character you want to display? But that's another issue. But the positive self-talk statements help you stay away from the judgmental thing and the negative. If you're thinking positive, there's no room for negative.
Yeah, absolutely. Bottom line, that's it.
Be proactive, write some self-talk statements. And a good one is, I've done my work in practice because I planned my practice. Now I'm ready and I'm going to do the best I can do today.
Perfect.
That's a good one. And you keep saying that to yourself over and over and over again.
Perfect.
And soon you'll begin acting it out. So, that's an easy thing to do. Everybody can do it. I encourage everybody to do it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that covers it. That covers what we wanted to talk about. We had no intentions on keeping this super long. So, I will say that people that are going to start listening to this podcast, I mean, people are familiar with this. You will be able to view the edited version of this podcast on Larry's page, as well as the Peak Archery Podcast YouTube page. So it's going to be in 2 locations. I think what you're going to see mostly is that Larry, anytime we're talking about the book, sections of the book, specific topics related to the book, you'll see those on Larry's YouTube page. And I will be putting them there, working with Larry to help promote his book and his coaching. Yeah. And then we'll keep them archived in order on the Peak Archery Podcast YouTube page. So but yeah, and it's again, if as we go through, if you have topic ideas, things that you think need to be discussed, you know, the we'll keep it. But our goal with this podcast is strictly geared toward competitive archery, learning to peak when it's necessary, constantly improving, helping shooters and coaches develop into being better participants within the sport. That's what it is.
But if you're doing that for your target archery, you're going to be a better hunter.
Sure thing. Sure thing. Well, I hope we draw some more of the hunting side to this podcast, because they, you know, a lot of people are listening to these other podcasts that turn into like more like tuning discussions, and sometimes like I feel like a lot of the bow hunting community puts the cart before the horse when it comes to, oh, my setup, you know, and I'm like, well, can you shoot 30 consistent arrows, like truly consistent, correctly, focused, on point, perfect arrows with zero distraction? You know, can you do that? Or are you like going down the rabbit hole of tuning, but you're not spending enough time tuning this and your shot process?
It's back to the first principle again.
Yeah.
And when you draw back on a game animal, you better be able to repeat what you do in practice.
Yeah.
And that means physically and mentally, your thoughts have to repeat.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, when the big buck is standing there in the front of you, you can get sidetracked in your thinking.
Yeah, you need to be hyper in the present. You need to distinctly be in the present moment and execute. That's it. That's all that matters. Like even hitting the animal doesn't matter. Execution is the only thing that matters. And I think that's one of the toughest things to get across to bow hunters, especially new bow hunters or guys who have never shot competitively. You know, it takes years and years and years of shooting at animals to get super confident and comfortable. But as a competitive shooter who also hunts, that notion of staying calm on the competition line 150% is transferable to drawing on an animal. Forget the environment.
So you must focus on what you have control over, and that is holding the bow and executing the release.
Yeah.
Now, once again, after the arrow leaves the string, you don't have control.
Yep.
Yeah, and
I know we're going to get into this. But it's all about your preparation and your confidence in your preparation. Right. Like there's just so many factors that people, they miss out on. They just, they miss the bow, but that's what we're here for. So, all right. Anything else you want to talk about, Larry, before we let everyone go?
No, just, we're looking forward to doing some topics to help everybody take a step toward your peak. You know, if you can get one thing out of each podcast that will help you get there, well, we've met our goal then, Frank.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, like, we have no sponsors for this podcast. This is strictly for your benefit and a way for us to help grow the sport. So please, share the show. That's all I ask. And I say this in the Bear Bow Project. They do have sponsors in the Bear Bow Project, but I don't harp on people. I don't, go through 4 minutes of the beginning, but here there isn't. Share the show. That's all I ask. I don't care about anything else. Share it on your social media, share it with your shooters, your parents, your coaches, share it with people that will benefit from it. And that's it. So hope you all enjoyed episode number 1 of the Peak Archery Podcast with Coach Larry Wise and myself, Coach Frank McDonough. Appreciate you all joining us. Larry, see you in the next one.
Oh, yeah. See you on the next one, everybody.
See ya.
Have a great week.
Stop. All right. Live stream is over.